Hello and welcome to Powerhouse Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Stephana Johnson, and I have a special guest with me today, as you can see. This is Christopher Dedeyan. He's a professional speaker and he's also a peak performance coach. I'm super excited to have him join us on this broadcast today. So we're going to be talking to Christopher specifically about a subject that can sometimes be taboo, but he's going to share from his perspective, especially because he is focused on really helping get the best out of people. And he is going to do that from a perspective that you might not think about when we talk about dyslexia, because that's been a subject that sometimes people are, oh, that's stigma. But I don't think it is. And I think we're going to get a new perspective when Christopher shares with us what he's done. So Christopher, I want to welcome you. And let's just start out with, go back to the original moment of what made you decide to go into your specific industry with
Yes.
this, right?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Stephana, for having me on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to the next couple of minutes we're going to spend together, a little bit more than a couple of minutes. So essentially, how did it start that I became a professional speaker and a peak performance coach? Honestly, my previous industry that I was in was actually in real estate. I was a real estate broker, and I had the opportunity to go on stage one day. I was actually invited by my speech therapist that used to follow me in high school. Like you mentioned, I'm dyslexic, so at a young age I was getting followed by a speech therapist. And she had called me to ask me a question about real estate. And after the conversation was done, she asked me, Chris, how's it going with you? And I was at the peak of my real estate career. So I'm like, it's going amazing. And I just went off. And after a few minute rant, she's like, wow, Chris, that's amazing. She's like, I am the keynote speaker at this event. I would love if you come and you tell us your journey of how it was being a dyslexic in the schooling system and now as a young professional in real estate. I'm like, awesome. So I get ready for the event. I honestly did not know what I was waiting for. I just get ready for it. She told me it was going to be about 200 people. End up going to the event, look into the room, and I see over 1,000 people. So that was my first introduction to speaking, go on a stage in front of 1,000 people. But honestly, the second I got on stage, it was just magic that happened on the aspect of I really found myself and I found my purpose, that is what I have to do for the rest of my life, give my knowledge and really help advance learning disability stigmas and make people understand and really just help people develop in the best way possible. So that's a bit the introduction that I had into this journey in itself.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to share with people, if you don't mind, you're 29. You're going to be 30 in
Yes.
a week or so. But so being young and having the kind of energy that you have, it's really fun to actually see and kind of play with this, because one of the things that happens with regards to, there's so many people that want to be speakers nowadays. I can't tell you how many people in an industry of whatever it is, if they're in tech or if they're a leader in something. Well, there's either those that really want to get out there and speak and share, and they have so much passion, and then there are those that want to have nothing to do with it. And
Yeah.
it's clear that you have an enormous capacity to share your joy, your experience, and communicate. Because I think essentially that's what speaking is. It's communicating a message and a story. And people want to hear stories. They don't want to be talked to or talked out. They want to hear about stories. And tell us a little bit more in detail. So you mentioned you're in real estate, but clearly you shifted. But as a result of the real estate and what you were doing, you had your own brokerage firm, right? And so you had people under you. And I know just in reading about your past, you've had people under you that needed support and help. And so you went into that direction. Tell us how you decided to go into the peak performance and how you implemented it, why you think that's such an important piece.
Well, first of all, thank you, Stephana. That's very nice of all the compliments you just gave me. And it's 100% true. Like, I really am passionate about speaking. If not, I wouldn't have done the shift because, to be quite honest, if we look at the business side of it, it was completely, let's call it stupid. It really was that I left a company that I was doing really well. Like I developed my brokerage company, and I had my team around me, and I completely decided to go in something different because I really saw there was a value there, and that's really what I have to give. This is what the universe gave me as a gift to share with everybody else. So what I noticed, what you were asking with the question of how I notice other people and, to really get them to peak performance, was because I'm honestly a junkie on self-development. I personally have 8 coaches and mentors, from my head coach to my speaking coach to my real estate coach back in the day to my meditative coach to my dietitian. Like I can name all of them, right? So I'm just so involved in that, and it's really a passion that everybody in the real estate industry, in the Remax office that I used to work at, the other brokers used to see this, and they used to come and ask me questions. Chris, how do you do this? Chris, how do you wake up at 4 a.m. consistently? Chris, how do you prospect? And I saw that there was this need, and I was really enjoying transferring this information to people and teaching them how to do it and how to put systems in their business. So when an order comes, if the system is there, they won't fail at it. They could completely get it done. That I realized afterwards, I'm like, there is something to do here. And how it kind of came about, like this coach thing. And to be quite honest, I was actually resistant to the aspect of calling myself a coach or being a coach, because in my mind, I was a speaker. I didn't necessarily want to go necessarily to the coaching realm. But one of my friends, which as well, he is a coach, he kind of slapped my face and told me, Chris, he's like, you are a coach. Why are you pushing this away? And I realized so many people were calling me to ask me for advice and just, back and forth. And the only way I could really help these people is if I speak to them consistently and give them homework consistently to really help them develop into the person they need to become. So that's how I decided to be, okay, this is what I need to do in coaching as well. So that's how I kind of went into it, and I've never regretted it since.
Yeah, nice. So it's interesting because you're in the younger spectrum of age, the generation, and I'm on this other end of it, and I'm before coaching came around, Tony Robbins, Peak, and all that. And when I was doing what I was doing as far as helping and guiding and mentoring, and you can call it anything you want, teaching, guiding, supporting, loving, giving a kind, helping hand, it's really all of that. Yes. But now it's this whole industry of coaching and speaking. And really, though, what it is caring about the person in front of you to put out the fire that's going on in their head, right? Or because they don't see that. And so we can call it coaching or whatever, and we can call it speaking, but really what it is it's sharing our gifts to help another be able to share whatever their gifts are, right?
Yes.
And I think that's wonderful. That's a fabulous piece. Let's go back into your quote. You have, I asked you to bring a quote, and I love the quote that you brought. So awesome. Share the quote.
Yes. So essentially, the quote is, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It cannot be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. Albert Einstein. So I literally have actually a keynote on this whole quote right here. I dissect it in and out. And the reason why is because this quote literally changed my life. Because when you read it, he talks about energy. He talks about match your frequency, and you cannot help but get what you want. So he's kind of talking about the law of attraction, the law of manifestation. Now, these are all things that I truly believe, and I have manifested so many things in my life. And that's on the metaphysical side of it. Like, it's completely real. It's just not tangible. But then he says, this is not philosophy. This is physics. So when he said that, that's kind of where my mind blew. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Philosophy is thoughts, it's ideas. Physics is, for me, tangible. I can literally explain it. So I went and I started doing research. I'm like, what does he mean? What can I find? And in my humble research, what I found was something in the brain that's called the reticular activating system. In short, we call it the RAS. And the best way I could describe it is essentially that is the filter of your mind, of your brain. So right now, we're looking at things and we see over 2 million elements. But our brain does not have the capacity to assimilate all that information. So he gives us the information that is pertinent, or he thinks that's pertinent to us. So example, we've all probably bought a car here before. Maybe it took you a month, maybe it took you a week, maybe it took you a day. You look for what car, what model, what steering wheel, what horsepower, all of this stuff. The second you get into the car, you're super happy. You drive off the dealership. First red light, you see exactly the same car across the street. And then you drive a bit more, you see another one. And then you see another one. Something you've never noticed before. But that's your reticular activating system working for you. Because for so long you were thinking about this specific car, And now he's saying, hey, Chris, there's the car again. Hey, Chris, there's the car again. Now, where this relates to us is the vocabulary we use. A lot of my coaching clients and my friends around me call me the vocabulary police because I do not accept negative connotation vocabulary being used around me. If you use positive vocabulary, you will attract that. And so much so, there's actually a Japanese scientist doctor, Mr. Emoto, did a research on this. He took 3 different bottles. You're smiling because you know this one. So he took 3 different bottles and he gave the first bottle love. So he gave loving affirmations. I love you. You're the best. You could do it. The second one, he gave hate. So I hate you. You're ugly. You look fat in them jeans, whatever he said. And the third one, he completely ignored it. And after 60 days, so after 2 months, he realized that the form of the water molecules completely changed. And the ones that he was giving love was just beautiful. The one that was hated was all over the place. And the one that was pushed away, not spoken to, was not as bad as the hate, but he wasn't really good either. And he does the same thing, the same practice with rice. He says, take 3 quantities of rice equal and do that same work. And after 60 days, you notice that the hate is completely like dark and black, and the one with love is completely normal, and the other one is a bit in between. So that just gives an example, and I feel like this quote kind of opened it for me to really understand that everything that we say, that we're talking about law of manifestation and the law of attraction and the cause and effect, there's literal tangibles in our minds that really explain that thing. So it's not only hula confirmation, like things we speak about, it's really physics.
Now, put that together with our body is water. Our body is nitrogen and soil 70%. And many. So we think we're just this one thing, and we're all of that. So it's a beautiful analogy to utilize that tool, so simple, of talking to ourselves in that way. That's beautiful. Talking to our beloved. Why do we have bad relationships? Because what are we thinking and saying in those relationships? So yes, I love that. That's fabulous. I'm loving that you brought that up. So let's go back to then, you transitioned into speaking, you shared with this audience, and you specifically shared about your struggles with the dyslexia. And you know, I'm one that I don't ever take a diagnosis. So to me, they're just labels, right? And because of the work that I do with around the brain and the mind, I know that dyslexia is really just some shifting. Because, right? I mean, really, we're looking at everything upside down, backwards anyway. That's how the eyes are seeing. So the piece around this is really interesting, that how we use, and specifically how anyone could use, let's call it a challenge, let's call it a label or a challenge, to really catapult them into their soul's perfection. I believe that within myself. I've taught it for years around the sexual abuse and trauma that I used to speak on a lot, is that our greatest wounds are our soul's perfection, are our way and our journey, right? So tell me how this transpired for you and how it unfolded in everything that you're doing.
I mean, it was a journey. I feel like you kind of put it spot on, that really, like the hardest point of your life is actually, there's blessings that come out of it. But sometimes when you're in the middle of that, you don't necessarily see it. So for me, there was that journey. In the beginning, when I was diagnosed with dyslexia at 8 years old, when my parents come and told me in the middle of the school year, Chris, we're taking you out of the school that you're in right now, and we're going to a specialized school that's going to help you with your dyslexia. At 8 years old, all I understand was I'm losing my friends and I'm going to a special school. I don't want that. Like, I didn't even know what dyslexia is, right? Yes, today I could tell you dyslexia is learning-based difficulty. People with dyslexia have problems with language skills such as reading, writing, spelling, and even pronouncing certain words. But at that age, I didn't know. So I had to go through that process, then I had to go to the specialized school. Then I realized that I was getting so much better in this school because I had a structure. I had people that were specialized around me. I got the proper tools that I needed to have to succeed. Then I started understanding. Then when I went into my first decision that actually I took as an adult, which was my first stupid decision, is I decided to go into a field that was completely out of fear. So my first thought was I wanted to be a lawyer because I like wearing nice suits. I like speaking with people. But then I studied a bit about it, and I saw that like 85% of the job is like reading and writing. So as a dyslexic, I'm like, yeah, I don't see myself doing that. So now I have to change my criteria and look for a job that has very little reading and writing or no reading and writing at all. So I found fireman. So that's why I decided to go into it. I'm like, yes, let's go. That's fun. It's the boys. And I started going into that. I actually got my diploma. I did everything about it. I even worked out a little place into that. And I noticed it wasn't made for me. But that whole decision was made out of fear, was fear of showing my dyslexia. At a certain point in my life, when I was younger, I didn't want my peers to know that I was dyslexic. I didn't want others to judge me on that. And I didn't want people to think that I was lesser because I had dyslexia. Now, going off of this, then I went into entrepreneurship and became a realtor, did extremely well. And I noticed even with all my difficulties, I'm doing transactions of like hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point, and people are, confining me to sell their properties as a dyslexic, and I'm doing it all. So with the maturity came the time and understanding that honestly, this is my greatest strength. I've learned so much because of my dyslexia. I became such a relentless human being because of it. And it's now my reason of being. So my whole business has completely changed towards that. Now I'm the president of my alumni class, which from Vanguard, which is the school that I graduate for with students with learning disabilities. I do a lot of things with the Learning Institute of Quebec as well. So now it's my life's work. So it's like a whole 360 that I did, but it's a process, like I said. So often I talk to parents that just found out their kids are dyslexic and they're kind of like scared and all that. But I tell them it's a process. There is light at the end of the tunnel if you keep on working towards it. So that's what the story was essentially a bit.
I love that. And it's so inspiring because it does describe someone's journey and it takes you through those choices that you made based on fear. But I don't, it's so interesting. We judge so much of, I made this mistake and I was a failure at a fireman or failure at lawyer. Like, no, your perspective was completely different. It's like, no, I saw that this, and then but you observed it and you could see. And I really like this perspective that you can step back and observe at this bird's eye view. This is what's going on. This is what I'm seeing, and course correcting. I teach that in the Pilot Your Way method for Powerhouse Leaders. It's that we are in flight. We are on our way to somewhere. And if we don't know where we're going, we're either going to be directed by someone else or something else. Our fears can direct us, other people can direct us, or from our own intentional place, we can direct ourselves. I want to say two things. First, because I have two boys and my boys are 10 and 13 and we homeschool. And if my second son was in public school, he would be definitely have diagnosed with dyslexia. But I chose a route called Waldorf, which is more artistic, and it's a right-left brain idea of this, letters, numbers, they are abstract. They're not natural to the human mind, right? They're abstract. There's lots of abstract ideas. Now we want to develop that idea, but a child doesn't necessarily learn that, especially before the age of 9. So there's a whole world of diagnoses that goes on in our children and in our even adults, where we have missed out on a lot of understanding, and no one would know that if they're not specializing in it. So I love that you've brought up that you have a specialized coach for nutrition, specialized coach and you went to a school that specialized in this. So they knew what was going on. They knew best how to help those. And I think that says a lot for where we are today as a society and how we can really how we can better lead ourselves, better lead our families, better lead our companies and our businesses, and better lead a country, you're in Canada, but in the United States, our leadership is subpar. But it has to do with, I think, that there's not a really clear delineation of values. And you mentioned it, and I'm going to take you back to it now. You said it didn't align with my values, lawyer, and yet the fear kind of pushed you away, but you had enough connection to what you valued. And I think that's more the reason you succeeded in real estate, because your connection with people. It's not about, and then, because that's what it is. So to tell me more around this piece of how you are, clearly you've always naturally been a connector, wanting to connect, wanting to share, because people then gravitate you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. And just a couple of points that I want to add to what you just said, which is amazing. That is why I hire coaches, and that is why I coach, because when you are in your bubble and you're doing your thing, sometimes that outer perspective is beyond needed, right? And let's take example, I mentioned football, American football. There is the head coach, which is on the field, and you have all the other coaches, but you have coaches that are on top and looking at a bird's eye view. That's a different view. So when I'm doing my business and I'm doing what I think I'm doing and it's great and I'm checking myself and I'm readjusting and I'm relooking, just like we spoke about. But when somebody comes from an outside perspective and says, hey, Chris, maybe you should have done this like this. You're like, oh my God, yeah, why didn't I think of that? Because you're in it, right? So that's why it's so good to have that. And there's always this like tug and pull. And that's why I have so many different coaches on different elements, because I truly believe in it. So that's absolutely it. And on your question on like how did I really succeed in real estate or whatever, is because I was connecting with people. And you're 100% right. Like my dyslexia gave me so many advantages. Yes, it gave me a lot of negative stuff. Let's call it that. But the positive was, because I was dyslexic, I couldn't rely on my reading. So I had to rely on my people skills. I had to rely on my delegation. I had to rely on putting teams together. So when the teacher used to come into the room and say, kids, we're going to be in teams of 3. Before she finished the word 3, I had my head up and I was looking at who reads the best in class, who writes their best in class. Let's put a team together, make them do the work, and get to grade all 3 of us together. That's what I did. And then when I went to college and I was failing a bunch, I used to go after and see the professor at the end of the class and negotiate my grade up. Negotiation 101. So I learned so many entrepreneurial skills because I had to survive in the schooling system that I was in to succeed and get my diploma that I use into the real world. So that's why, like, you kind of figure it out. And like you said, now as an adult and having the mindset and the reflection that I have now, I could see it and understand it. Back then I didn't know. Back then I was just kind of surviving, right? So yes, definitely did play a big part into who I am as a person today.
That is really, really cool. So, best advice you've been given, and then share your best advice for up and coming leaders.
Best advice that I've been given, and I feel like I've been given so much on so many different ways that I can't pinpoint one.
Something that just,
Yeah, something that's
yeah, that's just like, oh,
uh, one was an experience and an advice, kind of letting go of the chaotic vibration and the fear of money that that kind of limits us and holds us back. And what I mean by that, just not being a slave by it. Now, why I'm saying that, maybe to the entrepreneurs out here, everybody that has went into the entrepreneurial journey has gone through some rough patches. It's a part of the journey. Honestly, I've never met an entrepreneur that said, "Oh, I just went out perfectly." No, then you're just no, that's not how it is. Like you go through some rough periods and financially become super tough. But when you completely give that away and that mentality of, listen, that money is not controlling me, like greatness happens. You leave room for the value you're bringing in. You leave room for the work in itself. It kind of takes its place. And I don't even know if I'm articulating this in the best way possible.
oh, it's
I'm just gonna
fantastic. Yes.
Oh, but that's amazing. And I'm just going to give you a story that happened to me. I was in the beginning of my real estate career. And like I just said, nothing comes easy. The first year and a half, I literally paid to be a realtor. And it was super tough. And I remember a specific moment that I didn't have money to pay my monthly fees. And I was freaking out. And that was the moment that like money was controlling me. And I was doing everything that I was supposed to do to succeed. I was prospecting, I was knocking on doors, I was talking, I was networking, I was doing everything, and it just wasn't happening. And when I kind of gave in to the universe, like said, okay, this is like I'm doing my max and this is it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna quit because I've came too far. I did not come this far to quit. I just kind of gave into it. And I remember specifically, and honestly, I was shedding a couple of tears. I was actually crying like a little baby in my mom's arms. And the next month it kind of exploded, and I don't even know what I could say. It wasn't that month that I did the work, it was all the rest of the months that I did my work. It just happened there. But I truly believe it was that fear, that limited belief that I have with money, that completely let go. And what happened was, honestly, I valued money differently. Now, I respect money and I value money, because without money, I would not have this laptop, I would not be able to talk, I would not have this clothes, I would not have this roof, I would not have the food in front of me. But I understand the most valuable things in life are given to us for free. And that's the day we are born. That's our thought, that's our mind, that's our family, that's our love, that's our ambitions, and that's our values. That's the moment I realized that. And then I completely shifted my entrepreneurial mindset of how to go and get it and what I need to develop. So I wasn't chasing money because back then I was chasing money. And don't get me wrong, money is not bad because I am very abundant and I attract enormous, and my fees are not necessarily given. It's an investment. But at the same time, I am able to understand what the hierarchy of importance is in life. And that's something that I preach and I teach to my clients as well. So that's the experience that I've had. I feel like that one great advice I could give you is really try to figure out that value that you could have with money, because not a lot of people talk about it. And if you come from immigrant background, there's like this negative connotation towards it. And people usually learn how to earn it. They learn how to save it, but not a lot of people learn how to grow it. So that's something maybe you should look into as well. So yeah, just understand that connotation of what the most valuable things in life are.
Christopher, I think that is such a perfect picture that you painted, because you really talked about how it's the outcome, and you didn't paint this perfect picture where it's all this. And thank you for being so vulnerable to share that, because I think that we are in a society, and a lot of young people today will just see snapshots of people's lives where they see them automatically in front of their Ferrari or in their beautiful house or their 10-figure a month income. And there's all these coaches putting out, and coaches of every gamut, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
these perfect bodies and this perfect this and this perfect relationship. And it doesn't happen overnight. There's work. You pay your dues. You have to go through processes. And paying your dues could look like your experience. For an actor, paying their dues. Sometimes people have been trying to star in a movie, and what they say, it's an overnight success. There's no overnight success. It feels that way because before you're pushing, and then you let go.
Yeah.
Just like what you just did. So that is such a brilliant, what you just explained and described. And I can just see you in your mama's arms. But you know what? That's what I hope for my own boys, because I know they're going to have to go through those struggles, and I cannot protect them from those things. And in fact, I need them to, and I need myself to remind myself, we're never going to be immune to that.
No.
I'm 50. I'm still going through those struggles. I'm still wanting to hold and cry and shed tears in my mama's arms. It's different. But exactly what you just said needs to be known, that it's okay. It doesn't make you bad. It doesn't define you as a failure in fact, it's what makes the joy. It reminds me of Teddy Roosevelt's quote about the arena. If we're not in the arena getting dusty, I'm going to send it to you. I'll post it with this. It's fabulous.
Okay.
If we're not actually in the arena getting bruised and beat up and dusty and part of life and the ebb and flow of life and feeling everything, then where's the fun? You haven't lived.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these descriptions of this are living. And then the piece around money is just one little reward or scorecard, one outcome, one result, when there are countless others. And to have a really full and fulfilled life, which clearly you do.
Thank you.
What would you say, just as far as I would love get a go-to book that you'd recommend.
Yeah.
And then as we wrap up, around those pieces of what you would say. So you did say money and describe that, but what are the things you think that people should look at when they're just starting out in whatever that is, to lead their lives, to lead whatever it is in a direction that they're going to go? Again, leading. Powerhouse leaders, everything I talk about, people are like, oh, you're talking about powerhouse leaders. I've already been a leader. Like, no, you are. That's who you are at your core. Mm-hmm. How can you now direct that? What other areas would you say you want to direct your attention towards?
My attention, or what do I suggest people to?
For you, share it from your experience, and then if you have a story that goes along with that.
For me, my direction, obviously there's the business, there's all this stuff, and I'm huge in self-development. That's every single day. Mindfulness space is somewhere that I have been developing the last couple of years. So it's definitely something that I want to tap into a lot more, which I am. I actually meditate about 40 minutes per day. So 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. And that is it changed me. It literally changed my life from, like I said, and the reason why I started that was quite honest. When I started really making it in real estate, I was moving a lot of money, and there's a lot of stress that comes with that. And then there's clients, and there's this, there's deadlines, there's that. And I realized that if I want to succeed and very well succeed in business in the long term, I'm going to have to learn how to control my emotions and really properly put my proper emotion homes, and where do I want to live and how can I get that. So the vehicle that I found was meditating and mindfulness. So one thing I suggest to everybody, start looking into that. It's definitely something, I feel like it's amazing that we're talking about it a lot more nowadays than we used to before, and it's just coming up. I feel like it's going to be the same level as working out. Like now everybody knows that working out is healthy and it's good and it's not seen weird, and meditating is coming to that end. And I feel like it's going to be the same level. So yeah, that's definitely something I would tell people to start looking into. If they don't got their health in order, oh my God, it's the number one thing you should do. Get your health in order, like from every sense of the way, because you'll be able to just be who you are even better. So that's essentially what I suggest. And as well, you kind of said book. Let me just shoot out a real quick. I actually do book reviews on my YouTube channel, so you guys could go check that out at Christopher Dedeyan, YouTube/Christopher Dedeyan. And the book that I will suggest, there's so many, but one that I really think everybody should read is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which I truly believe, you're smiling because you've heard of this book, and I feel like it's the flagship book of self-development. I feel like a lot of people have resonated from that book and made their greatness. And even Tony Robbins, he talks about that book as well. So I truly believe everybody should read that book. Another one I'm actually reading right now that I'm going to do a book review very soon as well is You Are Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. An amazing book, very, very thick in content. So that's something that you need to digest a bit more. But I truly believe if you want to succeed in life, you have to understand the biochemistry of the mind, heart, and body and soul. And that's an amazing explanation. Just like we spoke about the reticular activating system, you have to know these things so you can hack it. So when you're feeling negative, when you're feeling pissed, there's really chemicals that are getting secreted in your mind and body. So once you understand what's happening, you know the tricks to put otherwise so you could switch it around and then be happy or be productive or whatever the case is. There's literal science behind this.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah,
that's what I love it. I love it. So I respect your time. I don't want to pull you off too much longer here. Thank you so much. Awesome, awesome recommendations. And I will say also that we will put your contact information, but if you will just say that here so that we have it on the podcast as well, go ahead and say how people can reach you, what's the best website, and then you've also mentioned your YouTube, but go ahead and say that out, and then I'll type it out as well in the blog post.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So essentially, you could reach me at anything on social media at Christopher Dedeyan. So from Instagram to Facebook to LinkedIn, my YouTube channel as well, Christopher Dedeyan. Twitter, it's Christopher Dedeyan, just because my name is long. And you can go check out my website if you want to book me for coaching or for speaking, ChristopherDedeyan.com.
Okay, fantastic. Christopher, it's been wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.